What's up, Zach?
Sometimes we have planned, we're going to talk about this. Sometimes it's going to be about that. Here's one of these days where it's
going to go with it. They're just going to go with it.
It's Black T-shirt Thursday.
Yeah, I was thinking about changing that up.
Oh.
I don't know. Yeah, then I guess I may have missed the boat, but I was thinking about doing something different.
What were you thinking?
I don't know. I haven't got that far yet, but I was just...
Do you have a Hawaiian shirt in your closet?
Not Hawaiian per se, but when you look back at our very first episode, when you broke out the Canadian tuxedo, is that what you refer to it as?
A Hawaiian T-shirt?
No, when our first episode that we were on, the Canadian tuxedo with your jean jacket and
probably mesh.
I don't know. I was just thinking about changing it up a little bit, but today this would be the time, episode 201.
What makes now a unique?
It's just the first episode in the series of 200s.
Well, you missed your chance. Maybe at 301. Who do you think the 300th guest should be?
I don't know. We should lobby for that. Now, the thing about it is it's like
2 years from now.
But I bet the crazy thing is, it's like it seems so far away until all of a sudden it's like, dang, it's only 2 weeks away. It's just time is just weird in that regard.
2 weeks. Oh, well, I mean, it's 2 years and 2 weeks away, but
it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, it will be. What's on your mind?
Right now it's the show. I enjoy our Thursdays. We record this every Thursday at 11 for those that are listening on their favorite podcast player. But we record it Thursdays at 11. You can watch it live on our YouTube channel. I enjoy getting to know people better. I think that's one of the more recent discoveries. I had a couple meetings yesterday with people, and just to kind of get to know you meetings. And I know my favorite episodes of this show are people that we don't know, that I've never met before. And even for the folks that we've had on the show before, or that I've met before, we always kind of pull out a nugget or two of something that I didn't know about the person before.
It's always interesting when you know something and you forget about it, and then it pulls back out.
Yeah.
Like, as we're talking about that, I was thinking about like Nick Sutton and how he started Digital Lens Rental.
Yeah.
And how it was through a Facebook group, basically, that started it. Like a Hampton Roads photography business, photography group, Facebook group. And how that turned into a business for him. So, I mean, it's interesting where, like, those things, you forget about them, and then something recalls.
It is interesting you say that, because I have come to the conclusion that I have forgotten more about this ecosystem, if you will, than most people that are in the ecosystem know about it. And so if little spoiler alert, little teaser for everyone, yesterday, Zach and we recorded a little segment about just reliving the start of whatever of the ecosystem as we see it today, if you will. So producer James, he reserved some time at the Slover Library. So if you've never been to the Slover Library, to the Creative Studio, I recommend you check that out. But we got a recording booth. We sat down, we talked for about an hour and a half, did some recordings so that we can tell the story about why our region looks the way that it does today. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. But that was fun.
Yeah, an airtight, soundproof booth, 2 hours. I tripped down memory lane that I honestly didn't think I was ever going to talk about again. And some interesting aspects to it. It's pretty difficult to recite and to think back to some of those moments, and how it gelled certain things,
Hmm.
and it just very interesting. Just like the origins of like a Start Norfolk way back when. I mean, look, that hasn't been around since 14, 15, something like that. And I mean, so that's almost a decade that I haven't thought about it. I haven't thought about bringing it back in any capacity. Me, I like
Yeah.
to get things to the top and then retire them, do them
Yeah,
for a
it's
few
wild.
years and then retire them. Right.
Yep.
Some
Yeah.
people think that's ridiculous, but it's like, okay, like sometimes it's not even knowing that it's like run its course. Maybe it's just my ADD. I just get bored with it or something like that. I don't know, but it's interesting to
Yeah.
to
It,
to
it is. It is stunning to think about how much I forgot about that I had, and I guess with me, I'm just always looking forward. But it was great to look back upon. I enjoyed it.
Sure.
Learned a little bit about Zach that I didn't know.
Oh, what'd you learn? What did I do?
Um, no, just about some of the early pre Zach days that I didn't know about you. The whole Atlanta
Oh
piece
yeah.
that will come out eventually. But yeah, that was a ton of fun. And looking back now, so this is episode 201, as we mentioned.
Ooh,
And we have a special guest. This is a second time guest that we've had, and the
kind
very
of,
first,
kind
yeah,
of.
the first time that we had Blair Durham on the show, that was a lot. Well, all of our shows we record live, but we were on stage. We were at the Granby Theater as part of the Mighty Dream Forum. That was a great time.
It was.
That was
That was a great time.
we were just winging it. I mean, we just did 3 30-minute shows back to back to back. We had all the guests lined up, and I just remember I couldn't see anything because the lights were so bright on stage. I saw outlines of people trying to get our attention to push us. I don't know, to get our attention to do something, but that was a lot of fun. So welcome back, Blair.
That was a lot of fun. So much fun. And always great to share the stage with you guys. So thanks so much for having me today.
Well, you seem to be everywhere, Blair.
It's not as much fun as I thought it was going to be, the whole being everywhere part.
Oh, that's because you're not playing the game right then. Come on, you gotta.
I need some tips, Zach. I'm like, how do we do this again? I think about you and all the stuff you had going on when I first got into the space. Yeah. Just going back to what you guys were sharing before I popped on. It's
Well, I mean, tell us
It's
what's on your
really
mind from that. Like,
Yeah,
like,
I guess I'm curious. So, like, so this is the typical format. When we were at Mighty Dream, we just, I guess, riffed for 30 minutes or so. But like, what is the origin story of Black Brand? I've heard bits and pieces of it, but what was the beginning of that, and how did that get started?
It's a good question. I think I probably answer it differently every time I'm asked. But Black Brand, I think, is something that happened for me. I went to a PWI, very thankfully, a graduate of Virginia Tech. And while there, really got my hands dirty in some activist work, while also kind of studying all the things: Black studies, women's studies, sociology. I think I developed my fair share of anger, right, as part of that journey.
Mm.
A little frustration there about, what kind of change I could actually bring about. Um, and so graduated and did, some meaningful work for about a decade in sales and in education and in counseling. But in 2014, I met my husband. So I tried to start a nonprofit around 2009 and realized, wow, I have no idea what this even means. Just trying to raise money, right, to do some things. But I met my husband, and gosh, Bashiri was so passionate. He was writing all kinds of poetry and experiencing a little bit of the anger too, maybe some depression as well, just feeling like I can't even believe that in 2014 we're still dealing with the same stuff. We're still, the pair, it just, issues, right? And I think I kind of said to him, we should put our hands to the plow. Let's figure out what we can do. We started organizing people. Um, we had a banner. What was it? Everyday activism. We just
Mm.
started bringing people together and asking lots of questions, and trying to figure out who really wanted to do something and what exactly they wanted to do. 2016, I think, was an interesting year. That's the first time I remember, and there's some data that supports this, the hashtags in association with like police brutality. You can think of some of the names, Sandra Bland and others, right? And there were also a series of documentaries that came out around that time. Hidden Colors was one series. We had friends, Burt Bergen, I'm sure you remember Burt. He and Seiko Varner put together, I think it was a screening of the fourth installment on that Hidden Colors documentary. And it was very much focused on Black-owned businesses and economics. And I think in that moment we kind of said, yeah, if we're going to put anything in the ground, it needs to really focus on business. Like, we can't afford for it to be a civil rights movement about like marching or about anger or about, it's going to have to be squarely focused on business. And so I got to work, came up with a name and an acronym. I love a good acronym. Started writing a strategic plan and convene more leaders just to kind of discuss it, right, and see what feedback they might have. We would be the third go around for a Black Chamber of Commerce in Hampton Roads, and so that was interesting, trying to figure out why an entity that could be as important as this one would cease to exist, right? And then what we could do differently, how we could rebrand, and so that was how we came to be in 2016. Went ahead and incorporated and became a 501c3 and said, "We are the Black Chamber of Commerce."
Who
headquartered
was
in my
the
living room.
first? Who was the first quote unquote leader that you had mentioned that you had talked to socialize this, and what was the response?
Yeah, so I remember that Cliff Hayes, now Delegate Cliff Hayes, was a part of those conversations. I remember that Davy Smith, who is now running in Portsmouth, was a part of those conversations. Ronaldo Randall, who was our board chair for like 5 years, he's a MBA advisor over at Old Dominion, was a part of those conversations. I'm trying to think who else was at that table. I've got photos. I could go back and look.
Wow.
But also just some local business owners too. It was gonna need to be grassroots because we didn't know anybody. It was like, let's see what we can do.
Okay, so just a couple of things off of that. A chamber of commerce. Does anyone actually even know what a chamber of commerce does?
Right.
So why do you tag yourself towards that? Why do you use
Right.
that? Because it's
Call out.
it's what?
I said that's a good call out, Zach. I mean, this archaic language that also maybe doesn't necessarily resonate. But at the same time, it has a weight to it. It's got like a gravity. It feels intentional and serious. I think we wanted to have some of that,
Yeah, I think from an education standpoint, people in their mind, they know what a chamber of commerce is. The funny thing that I think is, I think a lot of the existing chambers that have been around a while, I think that they have shifted what it is. They seem to be so much more into the advocacy,
the advocacy piece. Yeah.
and maybe that's important. I don't know. That's just not my world. But
You
like,
mean like lobbying advocacy?
yeah.
That's a big part of it.
But is
Depending
it?
on how they're formed.
You think local businesses are sitting there going, "Hey, I want someone to go lobby for my business"?
I would like to know like what changes actually happened as a result from those efforts. We always see stuff that, hey, we're the general assembly is happening in Richmond. We're going to go and do this. But I never really. I would like to close that loop to find out what has actually happened as a result of. But
yeah,
I think that you, Blair, with Black Brown, you're more the traditional chamber of commerce that people are looking for. You have hundreds and hundreds of events, no, each year. I mean, it's a lot.
is. It's so I think there's a place for both, right? I think about the 501c6 Chamber of Commerce, right? And that is your Hampton Roads Chamber. They've got their flag in the ground for um, business writ large, right? And a lot of what needs to take place for medium, large size corporations is enrichment and beyond, right? It is some of that advocacy work. When I think about the meetings that we hold with them and they've kind of got this legislative agenda laid out, I get what it is that they do. And then they've got, a small business component via their relationship with the SBDC. And I think that's important too. But you're right. Like our focus, our mission is different, and we organized. So to make the distinction, the 501c6 can do all of that lobbying, like it
Mhm.
exists to be able to do that. The 501c3 can't really do all of that. We'd have to have a separate entity if we were going to have as large a focus on advocacy as the Hampton Roads Chamber does. But for us, the basis of our nonprofit is education. That's what we exist to do, right? And my personal philosophy is even if we had that C6 and we were doing tons of advocacy and all of a sudden all these laws shifted in favor of members of the Black community that want to start business or that were already business owners, we would still need to do a ton of educating in order
Right.
to even get to a place, right? So I love what we do. I feel like we could do this forever and never need to touch the advocacy component because there's such a gap as it relates to just the knowledge capital piece, the social capital piece, and then ultimately the
And
financial.
maybe on the C6 side, maybe they advocate year round. I don't really know, but I just can't help but think that you are making things happen 12 months a year. Yeah, and with that, I think that the repetition, the constant buzz, I think that speaks more than me run up to Richmond for 2 weeks twice a year or whatever, however often they meet. I just think that the impact that you create speaks louder than the C6 route. I could be wrong, but
Yeah, there's a place for both. Yeah, I've learned not to hate these guys.
no, for sure, sure. And there's no hate there. I'm just
Yeah,
from
yeah.
a yeah, just I mean, you all are just I mean, it's a grassroots effort that you're from the
Right.
ground up, and you know that hey, if we need to have something in place so that we can create it, and then maybe you'll eventually get to that point. But like right now, there's so much attention on you for the things that you're doing that you don't even really need that C6 designation, in my opinion.
It's something that comes up, from time to time. Our board members will say,
I mean, at the end of the day,
you know.
isn't it the same lobbyists that are up there advocating for the same groups anyway? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a world that I don't know anything about, so I could be completely ignorant right now.
And I'm looking to learn more. I understand that there is a Black Business Development Office that has been created by this administration. So I'm like, okay, maybe there's something there. Certainly dollars get allocated at that level, right? And when I think about the population we serve, the size of that population, there could be some work to be done there. So keeping
You
my eyes and ears open.
you said back in 2014 to 16, anger was a word that you
Mhm.
thought about a lot. What angered you?
Yeah, I think the anger, the height of my anger and frustration was probably in college, and just understanding these systems and institutions and you know how they were designed and how they continue to you know decimate people groups, right? Um, it's frustrating. I did ultimately realize, though, Zach, thank you for that question, that there was nothing productive that could come from that space of anger, right? That I didn't need to just move about with this like internalized hatred, that would not ultimately lead to any meaningful solution. So it's not something I carry. I mean, I really don't. I am very grateful to be able to do the work that we get to do with all kinds of partners. And really, it wouldn't even be possible without the level of support that we receive. And it comes from folks that, quite frankly, don't look like us. Like, in large part, the support that we get, the partnerships that we've been able to build. I mean, it's just I'm grateful. So yeah, but I would definitely say, seeing just a lack of justice and a lack of any real response, that can be frustrating. We really looking to have change or not. I think that's a question that members of our community ask, you know, quite frequently. So
In the last 7 years, do you think that there's been a lot of progress that has been made? Are you happy with the progress, and what progress still needs to happen?
good question. I do. I think there is. I think there's some progress. I think the ecosystem work is is meaningful. I think the fact that the community knows that there are supports in place for business, I think I think that is additive. You know, um, in and of itself, right? The fact that we can exist as a resource, I think that adds value to this community. Um, how do we continue to move that needle? Yeah, I think that this kind of work has to be prioritized at the institution level, right? This can't just be, oh, COVID dollars or George Floyd or post George Floyd dollars. These have to be institutional dollars if we're really trying to move a needle around an issue that has been institutionalized.
What is that? Where is that? The institution level. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think about, for example, a federal budget or a state budget, right? There needs to be an allocation that ensures entrepreneurship education all the time. It shouldn't even be a question. There should always be that designation because we all understand that entrepreneurship is economic development, is job creation, is building wealth, right? So if we get that, then let's not pretend that it doesn't take dollars to ensure that everyone has access to that kind of education, that kind of support system. Um, certainly the data show what that could look like.
Yeah, I think that's it's a great point in the sense of governments. They talk about all the benefits that they can provide for the citizens, but at the end of the day, the only way that they're able to provide those services and activities is through the revenue that is generated largely from business. Yeah, so nobody wants to see their taxes increased, but the more revenue that businesses can generate, the more tax income the different localities and governments can then recognize to increase the services
Absolutely.
they can offer. So, yeah, to your point, is we have to double down on the business creation so that we can generate more revenue to increase the quality of life for everyone. And I think that
The most.
is missed.
Yeah. I'm like, how are we missing this? We can't really be missing this. I think about the number of Hampton Roads citizens that are African American, the percentage of that population that is already engaged in entrepreneurship. That should speak to a designation, right? A federal or a state designation that says we're going to make sure that these communities get the support. A rising tide is going to lift every single boat. Every single boat benefits if all communities get access to what we're providing. So
Yeah, I do think that it's really important as well that from a business standpoint, they can't forget where they came from either.
Right.
So like they've got to give back as well. And I think that has been something that has been missed, that from the business side, there might be a mindset of, well, if the local government is going to be, provide the funding for this, then I can just keep everything. And now my financials look that much better. Whereas like, hey, somebody bet on you, somebody helped you along the way. Yeah, now it's time to return that favor and invest in the next generation of businesses, if you will. So
For sure.
I think that we need to continue to push that narrative as well when there is a successful exit, if there is an acquisition or an IPO at some point, whatever the case is, that we got to continue to reinvest in our community.
Absolutely. Yeah. It doesn't let corporate off the hook. We 100% need their engagement too, just across the board, right? And from a funding, from a participation standpoint, yeah, I'm in agreement.
Where do you live?
I live in Portsmouth.
Is the casino the biggest addition in Portsmouth, the biggest business to ever be created in Portsmouth ever? Maybe other than the port?
Yeah, it's pretty big. I want to do some action.
You've never seen impact that quickly, I feel like. I mean, maybe there's a bigger business in downtown that I'm not thinking about, but like it seems like it's because Town Bank was started in Suffolk, right? They're a Suffolk-based business, I think. Not to say it isn't the whole region, but you know how people like the city divide things. But it's very interesting how, like that, it's been a big improvement.
Yeah. It's tough, man. That I get where you're going with that, and certainly the city benefits. I mean, everything benefits. I don't know. It's still a tough one for me though.
Oh, you're not a casino fan. Okay.
I mean,
that's what I'm getting at.
I'll tell you, and I don't know that I've shared this publicly, so I'm going to share this publicly if that's all right. But
spilling some tea.
Rivers has been great to Black Brand. We have a great relationship with Rivers. They're a corporate member. But I wouldn't be being completely honest if I didn't say that when I attended the grand opening, that I wasn't a little saddened. I enjoyed the festivities, right? But when those doors opened and I saw that those were my people that had been waiting in line for hours to get in, and it was like, it was like a Tuesday morning. It was just like, oh no, it hurt. It hurt. It stung just a little bit. Because everybody in line was not going to win.
Sure.
Folks were not at work. I mean, it was just
really. I've never been. I'm not a gambler, so I've never been.
Yeah, I mean,
but I hear that it's busy all the time.
There's, they've got Top Golf. They've now got Yard House open there. Like, it's a spot just to go hang out. Even if you don't gamble, they bring comedians, and I think that's going to continue. I think it's going to become like a venue for. And all of that, I think, is a huge benefit. But I just think about the gambling piece, and it kind of saddens me a little. What's going to happen in Norfolk, though? Like, is that going to be a thing here in Norfolk too? My understanding is there's space.
I heard that it's I heard it's dead.
Yeah, I think it's a no-go.
You think it's dead on water? Okay.
I think for the foreseeable future, yeah, I do. I mean, at what point, like, just start breaking ground,
Yeah.
But at one point in the last 18 months, you called Tim and I goons. I'm just interested in your
yes,
the inspiration behind that. Why you call
that, right?
Yeah.
So, and I should probably look it up, but I'll tell you what I meant. It was coming from a place of love and honor. I feel like
that's how I received it that way.
Did you receive it that way?
That's where I was like, that might be one of the best compliments I've ever received.
A goon. I don't know. I should probably have Googled it first. But in my heart and mind, it meant like, these are the OGs. Like, they have been doing this work since before. Like, nobody else was doing this stuff. You guys were doing this stuff. You know what I mean? Like you can't have a meaningful conversation about this ecosystem and its history without including the two of you. And that's what I meant. That's really what I meant.
No, I thought it was. I wish that I could have like something on my desk that a nameplate that says something like that.
I'm scared to Google it now. I'm sure Zach, you probably Googled it and it means something different.
So we were talking about this, but you weren't on yet, and so I don't know if you heard it. But Tim and I did like a walk down memory lane yesterday.
Yeah,
and it was interesting, like really unpeeling the onion and trying to recall, because there is no necessarily like a strategy in place. It's like, oh, this is how we're going to do this. It all just kind of like there was no end puzzle that was ready to get put, like, but the pieces started like forming together, and it's really interesting to talk to someone that you know very well, literally across, not a screen in this case, we're actually in the flesh, but to just try to recall that and to see how like all these like magical moments did actually start to gel and happen. It's pretty interesting what can happen when you just start doing stuff and you start attracting some people to what you're doing. Yes. And then that leads to another thing, and then another thing, and then another thing. It's like it's very, I don't even like using the word interesting, but like it's just looking at it back, and this is like 14 years ago. To see like, oh wow, that's it's a wild ride. Yeah,
it took us almost 2 hours to get to
2014.
To 2014. So we're
not even there yet.
We're just teeing it up so that Blair can become part of the conversation. But it took us a long time to get to that point, and I'm looking forward to seeing the end result in terms of how it's all pieced together in telling the story.
So I'll share this with you. So
please.
I was like feeling myself a little bit a few weeks ago when I saw that the Slover was hosting the State of Black Entrepreneurship in the 757, right? I was like, wait a minute, that's our event. We've done that for the last 4 years. But then something said, hold on, wait, you got that from Zach. He was doing the State of Entrepreneurship.
And that's and I know that Zach has no desire to do that, and people are pressuring me like that needs to happen. And
I mean, as someone who's now doing tons of events, I do think it's an important conversation. And I think, Zach, the way that you did it, how you highlighted businesses and ESOs and filled that room and made it an important conversation, that does need to continue.
Yeah. Zach never comes across as nervous very often, but before those events, Zach was visibly nervous. Yeah, I mean, because it was a big event, and you put a lot of time and a lot of research into it.
I mean, I met Tally and Twine at that event, who like, I love Randy. You know what I mean? Like, it just, I don't know. I think it was important. And Tim, if you're thinking like, you want to.
I don't even think that I have a choice at this point. It is one of those things that it's like almost to the point where it's expected of me. And I was just at the State of the City for Newport News a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a production. I mean,
it is. It is. You had the screens and all of that is very well coordinated.
And it's prepared for it. And it's not like, so tickets weren't necessarily cheap, but they were cheap, right? So like, let's just say $50 to $200 a person, right? There are expenses and things like this, right? Mm-hmm. And we'd have sponsors, that were paying thousands of dollars and things like that. But like, it's not even like the people. Like it was, I'm giving a talk on something that I am knowledgeable in, but I am not knowledgeable in. And what I mean by that, like if I got up and gave a marketing talk or business talk or like a sales talk, I'd be fine. I could roll with it and be fine with it. Yeah. But there were so many different aspects to these talks, and I did 4 of them, that I don't want to say that I'm uncomfortable giving it, but like I am not well versed in a lot of the things that were said on there because they were just delivering information about the region, right? So like I remember at one point, one of the things I said was, oh, in the future, Dollar Tree, which by the way was this little toy store, this little general store that was started in Norfolk 75 years ago, has taken their headquarters in Chesapeake and is renovating it and making it into this entire town center. I know nothing about that, right? But that was something
happened
to tell that story.
Yeah.
Like for me to recite that, that's out of my wheelhouse. But I took it about and said, hey, like there is this opportunity here to continue to celebrate, to endorse, to champion the community. And what's the way that we can do this in a way that wouldn't just be another boring event with, terrible chicken, right? And so it's, everyone goes to these events and they hate the chicken. It's like so bland. And so there's this aspect of that we are always trying to do.
We come in. We bring the good chicken. Okay.
Well,
so we do it as a partnership.
Brown chicken, brown cow. I had some of that last week. That was quite tasty.
Good point.
But yeah,
it's
not an easy thing to put those things to the actual filling, like the filling of the room, all that, like that stuff actually was fairly easy. Me having to get up there and I don't like to practice talks. I'm giving a talk that is like not. So Tim, if you do this, like have fun. But like it is like because I don't have cards. Like I'm memorizing this thing. Like I'm giving it's imagine giving a talk on something.
Audacity to like mention me in one of your talks. I was shocked. And then subsequent to that, you like invited me to do a TV interview. Like I appreciate Zach that you're like Blair's coming to the space, then we're gonna talk about it. So thank you.
Tim and I I'm a firm believer that I can't do anything for Black brand other than just help celebrate it. Yeah, I can attend a thing every once in a while. Like I can't do anything about local business down the street. I can't do anything other than celebrate them, champion them, maybe buy something from them, and that's all I can do. Right? I can't help grow that.
Something that you have done. Can I tell you one quick thing? I don't know how much time we have. Really quick. I was just gonna say, you provided a box of your anomaly books. I don't remember exactly how.
I remember that. I remember.
That has been the gift that keeps on giving, Zach, because every time we're doing some kind of, we just did this week, twice this week. If we have some sort of door prize, I'm always incorporating books. We have a whole library full of books by different authors, but I'll bring yours and I'll say, hey, my friend Zach wrote this book. You should know Zach. Somebody else, I don't know if you remember Sonia Phillips, she chimed in. She was like, before there were any co-working spaces in this area, Zach Miller was on it. Like he's the goon. So you're still doing that. Like you're still, so everything lives on.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's a time and a place for everything. And so back then, when you were doing that, Zach, there was not a lot that was going on. It was the groundbreaking aspect, and that was one of the things. You were Mr. Norfolk and Mr. Granby Street, and then we had the stuff going on in Williamsburg. But then, as more and more people came into the picture, so to speak, I don't know if that would have worked, just because there is so much competition that was happening between one another that if it just there wasn't the sharing. And I think that today now there's sharing. So I could reach out to Blair and I could say, hey Blair, we're getting ready for the state of the startup address. Can you share your numbers and your data? And that trust and those relationships are now in place that we all can work together as a cohesive team. I don't think that would have worked a couple of years ago.
I forgot about that aspect. Like I used to reach out to people all the time and say, I need this. Some people would say, I don't want you to talk about us. And I'd be like, you are an important part of this area. Like I need to do something. Like it's like you see these brands that are doing interesting things. And I'm just like, hey, like I need to talk about you for a slide. Can you give me something? Like, I don't need to know like I don't need to know like revenue. Like, just give me something that's interesting that I can say, hey, local company has done this. You know,
Yeah.
that's not like, yeah, that was a challenging event because we spent a lot of time on that. Like
the research piece. Yeah. I'm gonna get you to coach me, as I haven't been doing hours that way. Like I've been doing it as a panel and maybe like having a speaker. But I do think there's something to be said. I'm leading this organization. I am interfacing with these businesses. It is an opportunity to highlight them directly on the screen without them having to do it themselves. I'm like, yeah, I may get some coaching for you. November 7th.
Okay, well, we should start working now. I'll
Yes, I know.
get your checkbooks ready, kids. Like,
let's 8 short months away. Yes.
Yeah.
Tim, I didn't know people were talking, like asking you to bring that back. So that's interesting.
That was incredible.
Yeah. It, and I think that it would work now. One of the biggest things that, and it hasn't been talked about nearly as much as it should, was the award of the Build to Scale grant. I think that would like underneath the surface, that was a really, really important thing for our region because no one organization was big enough to get it on their own. And it forced Blair, Paul Nolde, Jolie Spears from the SBDC, and Innovate Hampton Roads. We all had to work together in order to qualify for that because you had to bring $750K to the table, and no one organization had that. So we partnered together to make it work, and then we're the only organization within Virginia to receive that award.
What's it called?
The Build to Scale grant.
Okay.
And so with that, we established a lot of trust with one another. We have to continue to work with one another for the next 3 years. So there was a lot of really, really great things that came out of that. Obviously, winning being the top of the big prize, but all the preparation and work that went into that to get that grant ready for submission, a lot of trust was gained by working together, and that was a really, really important piece.
I want to call out, though, if I could, that Tim started working to build trust even before that opportunity came. Like Tim just reached out. He's like, look, I don't know if you know this, but I'm an ally in this space. You know, Tim, your willingness to just share, like, look, this is all the stuff I've created. Like, this is what I can bring to bear if we are to collaborate, you know, and I think some of that is what it takes given the sordid history of, you know, race relations. But you're just like, you leaned all the way in. You're like, yo, I think we could have a powerful collaboration and I'm willing to do mine. I'm like, okay, because that hasn't always been the case in this region either.
That's right.
Gosh, you don't need to exist.
I forgot about that. And so like a lot of people ask me like, what's my day-to-day look like? And so much of the last 4 years for me has been reaching across the aisle or the table or whatever you want to call it and building trust and drinking coffee and breaking bread. And a lot of that it had to happen. And now it's just, I think that our best days are ahead now because we all can work together and we trust one another. And we know that one organization can't do it alone. One from the funding standpoint, but the other thing in terms of like high-tech scalable businesses versus Main Street businesses, we all bring a unique characteristic and quality to the table that we can leverage one another to create that end product that is needed to be successful. So the founders are the really ones to gain for this. And that founders have always been my North Star. I mean, like I say it all the time, I am founders first, but I live it every day. I mean, I make time for the founders, and this is all for founders.
Yeah. Love that, Tim.
So yeah, exciting times ahead. What's some of the exciting stuff that you have on your plate that's coming up other than November 7th?
All the things. So we've kind of organized around like info session season and then program season. So we are like fully into program season. All the things are happening. Women Who Lead, B-Force Accelerator, Surge Community Business Academy. So we've got founders in here 2 to 3 days a week, 20 to 40 at a time. Lots of engagement from that perspective. And then just with our membership and those events, we're finally kind of starting to socialize our 150-year plan a bit this year with some events that are kind of tied to each of the pillars there. That's been, we learned the hard way. It takes a decade to build a 150-year plan. We're about 5 years in, so we've got all this data. And so it's a lot of work. We brought a new hire on Friday, very excited, an experienced director who is really going to be driving the events, which have become a large part of what we do and who we are. So
It's
yeah,
scary and exciting, isn't it?
Great 2024. Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh. I was talking with a founder last night who she was a practicing MD for 16 years. You guys probably know her. She tall, works out of Assembly, but she is like now a full-time entrepreneur. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, I have to get comfortable with the fact that this is never going to be perfect. Like this is always going to be a work in progress, and I've got to live with that. But I think that being around founders, other folks that are living with the reality every day that there's always a new iteration, you know, I think that makes it feel a little better,
We've had several guests that have brought up DEI and how for some companies it's just a checklist. It's just a check of the box. Some say it's a scam, things like that. I'm just interested in your overall thoughts, how it can be improved, what's the necessity with it, how we can include it in our businesses. What are just general pros, cons, good, bad, ugly of DEI?
Yeah. I saw a great meme earlier this week. Diversity is a reality. Equity is a something. Inclusion is a choice. And then belonging is like an outcome or something. I liked that framing. Like, it's a process that has to happen. I don't think of it often in my day-to-day, if I'm being honest. I'm very focused on just the work that we're doing. I will say though, my thought leadership is growing and being invited to certain tables. Yeah.
I guess
recognize that we still have work to do, on this front. And it's not just, okay, yeah, we've got to make sure that there's equity, or we've got to make sure there's diversity. Like it's gotta go beyond that.
I'm curious your take. Do I have blinders on in thinking that the entrepreneurial community is very inclusive in terms of we all want to help each other win? And I think that the entrepreneurial community is unique.
I think
in that
it's very
standpoint.
diverse.
I think it's more
You think it's
diverse
inclusive?
than
I think
other pockets of business. I don't. Do I have blinders on thinking that? I mean, that's just what I see. Now, I do think that there needs to be improvements in terms of like access to capital, but that's not stuff that we can necessarily control. I think that thinking needs to change in terms of like if you go to a VC firm and you look at who all their board of directors are, and when everybody is all white males. Yeah, that's an issue. Or if you look at their portfolio page and it's just all white males led companies, that's an issue. That needs to be improved for sure. But I think that from a entrepreneurial standpoint, I dig it. I love the diversity and that everyone's helping each other win kind of mindset.
I will agree with you at the strategy level. There is still not enough. There's not diversity, and therefore there's definitely not like equity, right? And so that's kind of annoying because again, this region is so incredibly diverse. I think at the strategy level, it needs to look like this region. Um, so that's not there. But to your point, I mean, founders are very, very diverse. Um, and I do think there is a willingness to collaborate and support. I think about our community, I'm always reminding folks that we got to stay in Hampton Roads. I know it feels tempting to move to Atlanta because it feels like there's going to be greater opportunity for collaboration in Atlanta because there are more people having success or whatever it is. Might be true, but we can develop the right attitude right here in Hampton Roads that brings about that level of collaboration if that's what we desire, right? And so a lot of the rooms that we curate are about reminding folks, no, we can do it right here, and it needs to be done right here. And to be honest, do we really want to leave Hampton Roads? Do we really want to leave the beach? Do we really want to leave our families? Do we really have to go somewhere else and start over completely and build new relationships? Or would we rather do a little bit of the difficult work and just try and make it work right here? So I'm Team 757 all day.
What if people want to move to Atlanta because they want sports?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. So, there's a huge talent migration study that's happening. I can't really give voice to it beyond that, but I don't know that sports came up as a thing. Tim, I don't know, you've been in on some of those meetings.
Yeah,
There are other things, safety, how much people perceive that they can get paid in other areas and things like that.
Oh, they leave here to go other places, and sports isn't the answer?
I don't know if it is. I don't know if it is.
I don't know.
But
If
I
it's
do
one.
think that folks here might want sports here, but I don't know if they'd actually leave just to get closer to sports.
Sure.
I mean, because you could drive a couple hours and be at sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do I need to move to an area? I don't know.
If I was to move to Atlanta, sports would be one of the reasons.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know. I never even considered it until you said it just then.
I guess I'm just a dirty bird.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, so I'm the only.
It's real. I don't know.
The only thing that roots me to Buffalo is sports. I know I'm never going to go back, but
I think there's so much opportunity here. So much. It's a great place to plant a flag, I think, for all reasons. I've said that several times today. I think I coined that.
Yeah, but that's what it takes. And I love the fact that from the entrepreneurial standpoint, the spirit is alive. I mean, everyone they think that and it rightfully so, they are convinced that they can make an impact on themselves, on their family, and the region, and change the world in their own way. That is the spark that is needed, and we have to keep that dream alive. And so I'm bullish on where we're going. So, but it's just, man, it's a long, long road to get there. But
yes.
Do you want to play a game, Blair?
Live? Sure.
Okay, so let's say that you are an Airbnb host or an Uber driver, and you get the people in the car that are staying at your home, and they ask you, hey, what should I do here today? What's a place that I should go visit? What's the restaurant or the food that I should go consume? What do you tell them?
Yes.
Okay.
If are they only here for one day?
Yes.
Oh man, that day is gonna be jam packed. I'm gonna probably give them an agenda. You gotta go see this. You need to eat here. Do you love seafood? Okay, this is what we're gonna. Do you do raw oysters? Okay, cool. We're going here.
Yeah, well, give us the whole thing. Don't just say where are they going?
Man, so I'm probably sending them, if the weather's nice, I want them to see both sides of First Landing State Park, one of my favorites. feel like they need to see the ocean from there because there's a good chance they're going to see dolphins. But I also feel like they need to see the woods because it's breathtakingly beautiful. I would actually, in fact, send them probably on a dolphin tour if the weather's nice. It's 20 to 25 bucks. You can't beat it. I mean, it's 2 hours. They serve alcohol on the boat. Really, really nice time. For food, I am sending them to, if they love Italian, I'd probably send them the Il Gardino's, which is still a favorite of mine after all these years. If they love seafood, I might send them for crab cakes at 456 Fish. If they love brunch, I might send them to the Main on a Sunday, or there's lots of good places for brunch around here. If they've never had Caribbean, I'm sending them to Cutlass Grill. Gotta go to Cutlass Grill over in Chesapeake. We're going to spend a lot of time eating if it's my itinerary. I go back and forth between eating and being.
That was great. Blair, that was the most complete answer that we've ever received.
Really? Oh, man.
Oh, 100%.
I was just getting started because then I was going to go into if they had kids. Right? I don't know. I mean, gosh, there's a lot to see and enjoy. If it's the start of fall, we're going to Williamsburg. There's areas in Williamsburg that just.
What's the place to go to in Portsmouth?
If we're hanging out in Portsmouth, if it's the weekend, I'm doing the farmers market. There are some really nice consignment shops on High Street that, I mean, you get a brand new dress for $6. I just think that's a win. Like, I've got no shortage of things to do. I mean, I've even considered and actually bought a domain name for like hosting full day tours of Hampton Roads.
A lot of people are talking great things about Portsmouth, that it's on the up and up.
I love Portsmouth.
The first meal I ever had in this region was in Portsmouth at Barron's Pub.
Okay, do you like Barron's?
Yeah, I've been.
I don't mind Barron's.
Yeah, I liked it.
Have you guys ever been to Still? Still in Portsmouth is nice. They've got incredible tapas. The whole space is like underground, like you're eating in a cellar. It's very nice.
I can't remember if I've been there. I've been to several restaurants on High Street.
It's not on High Street. It's like off of High Street though. It's still downtown.
Okay. I think downtown Portsmouth has really nice buns. Really nice buns. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. We're definitely doing a ferry ride. I probably tell them to take the ferry from Surrey to Williamsburg because that's a drive-on ferry.
Oh,
that ferry is super nice. I mean, I could give them a weekend.
There you go.
I dig it. I feel like I need to, after the show, like I either need to rewatch this or I need to just grab your ear for a few minutes and write all this stuff down, because you mentioned a lot of places that I had never been, nor have I ever even heard of. So,
have you guys ever taken the Pungo ferry? You drive out the Pungo and then it takes you to Currituck.
I never even knew there was one.
And then if you drive that route, there's all kinds of places to stop for all kinds of fruits and vegetables along the way. I mean, it's just, I love Hampton Roads. I just think it's the best of all worlds.
There you go. Walking poster. Yes. Blair Durham. Not just Black Brand, but all that you can do.
I love it.
In the 757.
I feel like we barely talked about Black Brand. Barely. A little bit. What
do we need to talk about? What did we miss with Black Brown that needs to be shared and talked about?
Now you don't know what to say after you have requested.
Yeah, it's hard to pull back and look at it because I just feel like I'm so entrenched.
It's a hard thing to do, to reflect back and know like what to articulate out that time. Yeah, it's.
So I will say I do think that you're going to see Black Brand start to do some lending. it was a dream of ours to become a CDFI. I think we feel like we've gotten the technical assistance portion of that close to right. You know what I mean? At least we're in a rhythm. We kind of, we've got providers and we know how that works. And so I think it would be natural for us to go ahead and start lending rather than making our entrepreneurs jump through yet another hoop after they've already come to an
What
info.
is that? What's that process look like, and how long does it take? I can only imagine it's got to be brutal.
It might be. So the first part is start lending, right? So
Mhm.
go ahead and start making some loans, figure out what that criteria is going to look like. Let that process teach you kind of how to refine it. And then after you've made some loans, then you can submit the application. So you can't become a CDFI and talk about it and then submit loans. I mean, then do some loans. You got to actually do some loans first. So, I mean, we've got lots of friends that are in the space who are willing to assist us until we can get to a point where, whatever, we're able to scale it. So I don't think it will be as bad as if we'd said on day one, all right, we're going to start doing some loans. We don't know anybody. I think the space has actually grown as well. I mean, I think you've got more local CDFIs right here in Hampton Roads. You've got LIST, you've got VCC, Bridging Virginia is doing some work. You've got Urban Strategies doing some work. But we've got partners in other parts of the state as well that have just said, like, we'll be your back office support and we can bring some capital to the table to help you get some loans out the door, and we can talk you through our process. And it doesn't have to be as lengthy as ours was because you're going to have the benefit of our mistakes. So I don't know. I think you might see us start to do some loans and have it be tied to our program. So you're a graduate of B Force, great, you qualify. You don't have to go knock on any other doors.
That'd be huge.
So,
That'd
I
be
know. I
awesome.
think it would be. I'm looking at these numbers. I'm like, wow, hundreds of businesses we're touching every year that are here to access capital. This could be cool. So
Yeah, I dig that. I would love
I
to.
also dig it.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, the thing that well, one, it's a need, but two, like the other thing is like reaching high. Yeah, like you're not letting something. I don't know what the word is, but yeah, like you're just not afraid to attempt it. So
what's the worst that could happen?
right, right.
It becomes a grant. They don't pay it back, right? That is
You
the
just
worst
said
that
that out
could
loud.
happen. I'm like, I'm inspired by Maggie Walker, first Black woman to start a bank. She figured it out. Bank was able to merge. It still exists today in Richmond. I'm like, wow, okay, it's doable. So we shall see.
There you go. Blair Durham, Black Brand. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
This has been lovely.
Yeah, thank you, Blair.
Did we go over?
No,
We good? All right, cool.
I don't know.
we got all day. I have all day.
Awesome. I have folks coming in